Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So we just had a crazy day yesterday in regards to the whole debt ceiling negotiations. We're going to be covering all that in today's video, and this is super important because we are now less than 2 weeks away from that June 1st deadline that was set by the Treasury Secretary, where we need to raise the debt ceiling by June 1st in order to avoid defaulting on our debts. And this is going to be super important because if we do default come June 1st, if we're not able to raise the debt ceiling by that deadline, not only is that going to have severe economic consequences for our economy, but it's also possible, noted by several experts, that we could actually have a delay in receiving Social Security payments, and these could come as soon as June as far as the delay goes. So this is something that we definitely do not want to happen. But before we go ahead and dive into the main content and all the updates in today's video, if you wouldn't mind helping me out real quickly by just giving this video a like, that just helps out with the good old YouTube algorithm, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. Okay, so once again, it was just a crazy day yesterday. Both sides went into the negotiations yesterday with a lot of optimism. We had the House Speaker and Kevin McCarthy saying, hey, we're getting pretty close to reaching a deal here. I think we can probably get it done this weekend, and then we're going to vote on whatever is agreed on the bill as soon as next week, and we're going to wrap this up, and everything is just going to be wonderful. Then, of course, we had Joe Biden and the White House saying, yes, we're getting a lot closer to reaching agreement. We have a lot of optimism as well. So we went into the day yesterday feeling pretty good about reaching an agreement, but usually when these things happen, whenever good things, good emotions happen, we usually have something bad happen in return. So yesterday they set up the meeting, they started talking, and they found out pretty quickly that no, they actually weren't all that close to reaching a deal. They were pretty far off, not just on one thing, but actually on multiple things. Now, the main talking point at the moment where they're pretty far off on is cutting certain federal benefits if you're not meeting a work requirement of working at least 20 hours per week if you're an able-bodied adult. This is for SNAP benefits and also Medicaid, but apparently they're off on multiple issues, and they found out this pretty quickly yesterday, and this really made the Republican representative who is representing House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in the negotiations, Garrett Graves, it upset him so much that he just ended up pretty much storming out of the room and saying, we are done. These talks are over. We're not going to continue negotiating. We're not making any room here. I'm pretty much just talking to myself. Why am I even here? We're not coming any closer. We're done. Talks are over with. We are no longer going to be negotiating today. Everything is done. I'm not going to continue on. That's pretty much what he was saying. So he left the room. He said on camera that until people are willing to have reasonable conversations about how you can actually move forward and do the right thing, then we're not going to sit here and talk to ourselves. So that pretty much, lit a flame on everything. A lot of people were sort of freaking out. Negotiations are over. Nobody knew when they were going to pick back up. But after a couple of hours went by, I think both sides sort of calmed down. The House Speaker probably spoke with Graves and was like, hey, we got to get back into the negotiating room. I know things didn't go too well this morning or this afternoon, but we got to get back in there and we got to work things out. So they did set up another meeting at 6 p.m. yesterday, and they went into this not feeling too good, obviously not as good as they went into the meeting yesterday morning. And well, if you're wondering if they actually made any progress, well, not really. So according to CNBC, White House Republican team say no progress in debt ceiling talks. So apparently no progress was actually made. So a second meeting on Friday between White House and Republican congressional negotiators on raising the federal government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling broke out with no progress cited by either side and no additional meeting set. That came at the end of a day of acrimonious talks that were broken off for several hours, with less than 2 weeks to go before June 1st, when the Treasury Department warned that the federal government could be unable to pay all its debts. That would trigger a calamitous default. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters in Hiroshima, Japan, that there continues to be real differences between the parties on these issues. And of course, Joe Biden and his team are over in Japan right now for the G7 summit. I believe they are going to be returning tomorrow on Sunday. Now, a lot of people have been critical of him for going over to Japan with these negotiations going on, but he thought things were improving. He thought they were going to be able to reach a deal this weekend, but it's looking more and more like they're not going to be able to reach a deal. And also, the lead Republican in the talk said no progress had been made on Friday. Republican Representative Garrett Graves said, quote, "We had a very, very candid discussion talking about where we are, talking about where things need to be." So according to both sides, not much progress is being made. Graves also said this wasn't a negotiation tonight, adding the timing of the next meeting was not set. He echoed remarks by House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy that progress needed to be made on changing the trajectory of U.S. government deficit spending and rapidly rising debt. The talks have hung over Biden's meeting with world powers in Japan. A second Republican negotiator, Representative Patrick McHenry, said he was not confident the two sides could meet McCarthy's goal of reaching a deal this weekend, which could then be presented to Congress for passage in coming days. Senior White House advisor Steve Ricchetti left the meeting room telling reporters that he was not assessing the talks. So again, we had that deadline set up by the House Speaker and Kevin McCarthy to reach a deal this weekend. That way they would have time to write the bill over the next couple of days and then vote on it next week and then have it passed by the June 1st deadline. But right now, it's looking more and more like they're not going to be able to reach a deal this weekend. The two sides are apparently still just extremely far apart, and both sides are actually getting pretty angry at each other. I mean, we had the Republican representative actually just storm out of the room yesterday because he said they're not even close. They're just pretty much talking to themselves right now. I mean, no progress is being made. What's the point in them even talking at this point? They're so far away, and quite frankly, they're just playing a huge game of chicken. But I will say this, even though they do seem like they're extremely far apart, a lot of the times these negotiations go something like this. So go no, 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 yes. So pretty much what I'm saying here is a lot of the times they will disagree. They'll disagree a second time, a third time, a fourth time, even a fifth time. And then out of nowhere, seemingly when they're so far apart, they'll eventually just come to a quick agreement on something. So what's seeming like a game of chicken right now, I think that possibly in the end they will reach a deal. But again, like in the title, I'm saying I can't believe this is actually happening. But yet I probably can agree that it's happening because this has happened several times in the past where it seems like, absolute disaster is going to happen. We're less than 2 weeks away from U.S. default, which would cause the delay of Social Security payments for a lot of people, more than likely, and then also a huge drop in the stock market and just severe economic consequences for a country. This is something that we don't want to happen, and really both sides are to blame here. Whether you want to blame Republicans, whether you want to blame Democrats, both sides are playing an equal part here. I mean, Democrats are saying, hey, Republicans should not be negotiating the full faith and credit of the United States and possibly causing a default over negotiating spending. But yeah, if we look back in 2019, the House Speaker at the time, Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, did exactly the same thing with spending at the time with the president and Donald Trump. So both sides have played this game in the past, and this is probably going to continue getting played. So we have to hope just at the end of the day that they are able to reach an agreement. And right now, we don't even have a meeting set up. So that's kind of the scary thing. Maybe they'll meet again today. Maybe they won't. It's possible that maybe the aides, the staffers of both sides will meet up today, because it seems like when the actual workers, the people that we actually voted in office, whenever they meet up, they can't make any progress. But whenever the staffers meet up, it seems like they make a lot more progress. So maybe the staffers will meet up again this weekend. Who really knows? But they have to get this done because we are running out of time. They need to stop playing this like it's some sort of joke. They need to negotiate. They need to make compromise, and they need to get something done. Because if they don't get something done, well, again, that's not going to be good. And a lot of people have said, a lot of, at least progressives have said that Biden should use the 14th Amendment to unilaterally raise the debt ceiling by himself. But according to the White House, this is something more than likely that they're not going to do because it would be challenged in court. So according to Politico, Biden's 14th Amendment message to progressives, it ain't going to happen. So progressive lawmakers renewed their call for President Joe Biden to bypass Congress to avert a default after the abrupt cancellation of debt ceiling talks on Friday, but the White House remains resistant. It issued a subdued statement indicating it sees no reason to pull the plug on talks, and privately, its message has been even blunter. Senior Biden officials have told progressive activists and lawmakers in recent days that they do not see the 14th Amendment, which says the validity of the public debt cannot be questioned, as a viable means of circumventing debt ceiling negotiations. They have argued that doing so would be risky and destabilizing, according to 3 people familiar with the discussion. So the 14th Amendment is something they don't want to do, at least right now. But if we get closer to that June 1st deadline, maybe the day before, maybe he'll go ahead and pull the trigger and do that. We'll just have to wait and see. But in the meanwhile, I will definitely continue to keep you guys updated daily on what's happening with these debt ceiling negotiations. But that's all I have for today's video. I certainly hope that you enjoyed. If you did, again, I would greatly appreciate if you could give this video a like. Consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already, and I will see you in the next video.